Welcome back to the garage. This week we're going to do one of those things that a lot of people don't enjoy, myself included, but it's essential to a project like this, and that's math. So when I bought this project, you'll remember it came with the cab and it came with a frame. And we've done a lot of work on the frame, changing the front end and everything. Now we have to look at the back end of it. When they set it up, I'm going to try to show you this the best I can. They set the frame up with a frame here, and they put this piece of steel on top of it. And my guess was that that's because they were going to notch the frame and make it so that they could bag the truck or whatever and get it raised and lowered. So I've been trying to figure out how to put the axle in this thing, and so I had to do some math. And the front end, I'm going to spin this around here. The front end, you can see the frame drops. And that frame is 12 inches off of the ground. And then when we swing it back around to where we're working today, we're 18 inches off the ground. So we have a difference of 6 inches, which means our axle has 6 inches of travel, which clearly isn't enough travel. For illustration, I was hitting the frame here to show you the situation. So what we have to do in this situation is we have to notch the frame. We have to take some of this metal away so that the axle can right up into the notch. They call this a C-notch. And so I was trying to figure out, well, how much metal do you take out? And that's where math comes in. So what I found out is that we have to take the 12 inches from the front and the 18 inches from the back, divide the 12 by the 18, we get the 6. That gives us our travel. Then we have to take our tire size. And because we don't have our wheels and tires for this truck, it's a guessing game. So I went out to my Jeep Commander out in the yard, and I measured its tires and a couple of the other vehicles. And I determined that I'm going to put a 30-inch tire on this full-size truck. And we're going to divide that by 2. So we have a number of 15. Then we take our axle diameter, and this is a new Ford 9-inch rear end with a 3-inch diameter. We divide that by 2, gives us 1.5 inches. Adding that to the 15-inch radius of the tires, we have a 16.5-inch radius. We then have to minus the 6 inches of travel, gives us a 10.5-inch notch that we would have to put in here for full travel. So I ran that up, and I've got 10 inches is here, so we're not going to get a 10.5-inch notch out of here. What I decided to do was I'm going to notch out this bottom section. I'm going to notch out half of the top section. So we'll get our plasma cutter. We'll cut up to here, notch over, come across, notch down, and back down. And that'll give us this notch to run it up in. I'll plate the inside of these boxes. That'll keep dirt and debris from getting inside of the frame and give it some more strength. I'll put a bump stop on the bottom side of this line here so that the axle actually only has this travel here. The other thing I noticed is that whoever tacked these diamonds on was just learning how to weld. Most of the welding on this frame is really nice, stacking dimes they call it. But whoever did these diamonds, and there's a couple more up front where the frame height changes, that are really messy. So I have a professional welder in my employ, and he's going to come in tomorrow. He's going to cut this out for me and I'll either have him clean these or remove them. And if we remove them, we'll decide if we even need them. And if we don't need them, then great, it's a much cleaner look. And if we do need them, then so be it. But we may come in with something that comes up, you know, and follows the C-notch or something that looks a little cleaner. So we're going to get that done. And that is one part of the math. The second part of math is the axle. The axle is 53 inches from, let's see if I can get my tape to move around, my camera to move a little bit more here. 53 inches from the outside housing to the outside housing on the other end. And our frame is 37 inches from the outside edge to the outside edge. So we're going to take those numbers, we'll figure out what the difference is, and then we will know how much to move our axle in and out. And then I got to measure from the back end of the frame back here to the center of our notch. Roughly it's 49 inches. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. I'll mark center line, and then we'll make sure that we get the axle centered in the center line and spaced evenly right and left. Then we have our 4-link brackets that we have to find and space appropriately on the inside of the frame. And then there's another one that'll go up on the inside of the frame, and we'll start to get the 4-link suspension installed on this. So lots of math this week, but stick with us, and we'll add some videos as we're going along of the actual cutting out and replacing and repairing the 2 sides on this. And yeah, let's get this rear end installed. Welcome back. Doing a little work on the frame to get it ready for the 4-link and the rear differential, the shocks, all that stuff. And if you looked carefully at the frame before, it had some diamonds that were welded onto it where they've done the attachment of the different pieces. And I wasn't really thrilled with the quality of the welds. So we've ground those off. And what I've done is I've made a cardboard template. I'm going to take the plasma cutter, cut a piece of metal to this shape, and weld it to the inside of the frame. That'll keep our outside nice and clean and show quality. On the inside, there'll just simply be a plate just like this one that will be welded all the way around, and that will give us the rigidity, the strength that we could possibly need. I hate to see the frame fold in half. I don't think it will, but it's a whole lot easier to add this plate now before we send it out to powder coating, and then we realize that we've got a stretch or fracture crack and have to do repairing it. You also recall that we cut out the C-frame on both sides, so that came out of the bottom piece, and then the top piece is where it gets its strength. There were diamonds here and here. Again, I didn't like them, so I made a cardboard template. I'm going to cut 2 pieces of metal to match this, and they also will go on the inside, and it will get welded all the way around, and that'll hook these 2 together nice and solid, so that again we have no possibility of stress, fracture cracks, anything like that, whatever you want to call them. Just want to beef it up a little bit and make sure that it doesn't go anywhere. We'll also put some plate in here and in here to close these channels off so that we're not getting water and debris and mud and bugs and all that fun stuff in there. So I've got my grinder. I want to get the rust, surface rust, ground off of these so that I can get these welded on I'm not going to make you sit through that. Grinder's here, and so let me get to work on that. So I brought the 4-link setup that we assembled last week out, and I attached it to the frame using some of my C-clamps here in the front and just a jack stand here in the back. And the thing I didn't like about it is how low it sits as far as how close it is to the ground. You can see that the lower end of it's like, I don't know, 10, 12 inches off the ground. I could grab a measuring tape, but it's really low, and I wasn't too thrilled with that. So I've designed a replacement bracket, and I had it on the other side, but my fabricator actually took it off to start the work on it. That will change these bars. So now you'll see our top bar is almost parallel with the frame. The top bar sits above the axle, the lower bar below the axle, but now we have about 18 inches between the ground and that bar. So those brackets are getting made, and they will get installed later this week. And then I'll show it to you again. But I wanted to show you what the original bars looked like, because you saw them all assembled last week. And the next time you see it, we won't be using those brackets in the back. So that's the change. Well, I came in the shop this morning and there was another box from Speedway Motors. So this should be our rear shocks. But let's figure out how this box opens up here and take a look inside and see if it's the right stuff. Couple shocks, got a couple of springs, and a packing slip, and the bearings for the springs to ride on. So I think we will be good. If you remember, we're still working on mounting the 4-link, which we just put together. So it's going to be a little bit of time before we can put the rear shocks on. But at least this time we have them here. They'll be sitting on a shelf and waiting for us instead of the other way around. So I saw the box, thought I'd share it with you. But we'll get back to installing that 4-link and that rear differential, and we'll come back to this on another day. My friend and welder came by today and tacked those front brackets that we looked at in the last segment. The rear brackets, however, were more complicated, and I didn't like the angle of the top link. It should be more parallel than it was. I got it pretty close because we custom fabricated 2 rear brackets, one for each side, moving the top link above the axle and the bottom link below the axle. We were able to keep them fairly parallel, keep the axle spaced where we wanted it, and we got them tacked in today. We also got the panhard bar tacked in today. I'm not sure if I can swing around and come up in here. So the panhard bar attaches to the axle here, runs across the top of the pumpkin, and attaches to the frame here. Again, all these welds are tack welds. When we pull everything off, we'll finish all the welding before we send it out for powder coating or painting. The purpose of the panhard bar is to keep the differential centered in the frame, and that will prevent it from moving left and right. We have a minor adjustment here so that we can adjust it to make sure that it's centered and then lock down that nut. And that's the same with the two nuts here on the big silver nuts on the 4-link bars. They're going to allow us to rotate the differential, the pinion on it, so that we have the right angle for our transmission. So we got all those tacked in, and then for the fun of it, we went ahead and tacked in the bottom and the top spring mounts and installed the coilovers in the back. So that is done. And then off camera, we did install the pumpkin so that we could measure the distance, which is quite significant, up to the transmission, and that was 92 inches. So we need a 92-inch drive line, or either a single or a 2-part. So that's going to be my project now. I'm going to try to find me a 92-inch drive line. So that's it for now.